Well, folks, as you can hear, my voice is totally gone. This is the result of the revelry and joy that's been happening in Washington, D.C. over the course of the last 48 hours. Donald J. Trump is president of the United States. Again, he was officially sworn in yesterday. If you watched our live coverage, of course, you know that. But he got to work right away. We're going to go through everything that happened yesterday. And boy, a lot of stuff happened yesterday. America's golden age is just getting started. Be here with us for every moment. There's never been a better time to join Daily Wire. Plus, use code 47 now for 47% off your new annual membership. So yesterday, as I say, lots of revelry. And that meant staying up till all hours of the night, hanging out with a joyous crew of people from all over the country, just excited to believe and feel that their country is back again. And that is because Joe Biden is gone and Donald Trump is the 47th president of the United States. It all kicked off yesterday when President Trump arrived at the White House and Joe Biden had to welcome him home. Here was what that moment looked and sounded like. Welcome home to President Trump as he got out of the Beast Secret Service car, walking up the steps with Melania to greet Joe and Jill. Jill, who looked as though she was absolutely dyspeptic throughout the entire day. Not a shock, but that must have been a hell of a moment for Joe Biden to have been just the interregnum between two Trump terms. They then shifted the ceremony over to the U.S. Capitol building. That is where the inauguration took place. It was originally scheduled to take place outside. It was extraordinarily cold yesterday in Washington, D.C. As President Trump was introduced to the crowd inside the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, USA chants broke out for the then president-elect, now president of the United States. It was a hell of a moment and a reminder, as we'll discuss in a moment, that Donald Trump's return to office is not the same as when other presidents get elected. And the reason for that is that his return to office is not just a referendum on Joe Biden. It is a referendum on Donald Trump. I've said for many election cycles, usually an election is a referendum on one candidate or the other candidate. This is maybe the only election of my lifetime where it was a referendum on both. And that is because, of course, Donald Trump has been the candidate before, twice. He has won once. And because of that, the American people didn't come up with somebody brand new. The American people were not interested in something brand new. They went back to Trump. Understand that this was a justification of President Trump's first term. It was an understanding by the American people that Donald Trump's policies are the best for the country. I said yesterday on the broadcast that usually in American politics, you tend to see something like a Hegelian synthesis. The philosopher George Hegel, he had once suggested very famously that in politics and philosophy and history, you have very often a thesis, meaning a proposition put forth, and then an antithesis, the opposite. And those two go to war, and what you end up with is a synthesis, sort of a halfway in between. That didn't happen this time. Donald Trump was the thesis. Joe Biden was the anti-Trump antithesis. And the American people said, we are going back to the thesis. It is an utter and complete repudiation of everything Joe Biden. And it is, in fact, a justification of President Trump's policies. It is an absolute endorsement of President Trump's policies by the American people. And that's going to make a huge difference, as we can see, because Trump is acting with alacrity. So yesterday, J.D. Vance, the now vice president of the United States, was sworn in. And I have to say, it was such a sweet scene. Really, really sweet. So JD has a beautiful family. His wife, Usha, she was holding one of his kids. His kid had like 3 Band-Aids on her, which if you have a toddler, understand is kind of the norm. Having a young family be sworn in this way with actual children, this is like a restoration of Norm's election, believe it or not. Joe Biden was abnormal. This is the revenge of the normies. I said this the entire election cycle, and the revenge of the normies took place. J.D. Vance is a normie. Here was J.D. Vance, your vice president of the United States, being sworn in yesterday by John Roberts.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
A beautiful scene at the Capitol. That is Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who again would not be on the Supreme Court except for the stalwart work of Mitch McConnell, as well as the stalwart work of President Donald J. Trump, who stuck with him when Democrats launched horrible attacks against Kavanaugh, swearing in J.D. Vance, who took enough slings and arrows of his own right there. And then, of course, it was time for the president-elect of the United States to become the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, taking the oath of office as president of the United States for the second time, this time being sworn in by John Roberts, who, by the way, has a terrible record of swearing in presidents. He didn't wait for Melania to arrive with the family Bible. So that was his second time screwing up the inauguration. He actually screwed up the inauguration of Barack Obama so badly they had to do it in the back room. Not a shock to me, since I didn't think he's a very good justice. In any case, here he was swearing in Donald John Trump as your 47th president of the United States.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with that, Donald Trump was the 47th president of the United States. He then proceeded to give his inaugural address. His inaugural address was kind of astonishing. It was much shorter than he typically goes. We had an over-under going on in the studio. I was suggesting that President Trump, I've seen President Trump speak 1,000 times. I've been at his events in person, and President Trump likes to go. I thought that he was going to go for 75 minutes. Instead, he went for 29 very pointed minutes. The speech started off with him suggesting the American people have spoken, and then a new golden age was here. Here was the President of the United States in his second inaugural address.
Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best.
And this was the message that President Trump was spreading throughout his inaugural address. Now, the media focused in on the first half of the address, in which he basically listed out all the reasons why the last 4 years have been a disaster, with Joe Biden sitting right there. It must have been super awkward for President Biden and the actual president, Jill Biden, to have all of their failings listed off. But once again, the reason that Donald Trump is justified in doing this is his election is a repudiation of Joe Biden. There is no other way to read it. Joe Biden was elected to stop Donald Trump by the left, and then the American people immediately reversed themselves and realized what a gigantic mistake they had made and put back in place the person that Joe Biden had defeated in the 2020 election. That is a complete repudiation of Joe Biden, period. End of story. We get to more from President Trump's second inaugural address in a second. First, you're going to love our friends over at Legacy Box. They created the safest and easiest way to preserve those precious memories trapped on old media you can't watch anymore. Think about it. Who still has a working VCR or film projector? Legacy Box makes revisiting these memories incredibly simple. You just fill their box with your old tapes, film, pictures, and then you send it back. Their professional team handles everything by hand right here in the United States. Before you know it, you'll receive your originals back along with everything digitized onto a thumb drive or stored safely in the cloud. It's like magic. We've actually done this myself. My family and I, we sent in old tapes, and suddenly I can see my grandparents when they were young again, because those were all on film reels. We had those transferred on over to digital format. Legacy Box makes it easy and convenient to restore and rewatch all those memories that have been lost to outdated media. For a limited time, get started preserving your past. Save 50%. Go to legacybox.com/Shapiro and revisit and share special memories from your past. Legacybox.com/Shapiro. It makes an incredible present for friends and family. Go check it out. Give yourself that present. Those memories, they're going to disappear unless you preserve them. Legacy Box will help you do it. Go check them out. Legacybox.com/Shapiro. Also, start 2025 off right. Black Rifle Coffee helps you wake up every morning feeling dialed in, ready to make the most of your day so you can make the best of your year. I'll be honest with you, I'm basically living off of it now. Now's your chance to get 20% off your purchase with code DailyWire at blackriflecoffee.com. Black Rifle Coffee's explosive coffees are roasted right here in the United States by a veteran-led team of expert roasters who take pride in serving coffee and culture to people who love America. Every purchase you make helps them further their mission to support veteran and first responder causes. Everything from getting funding and equipment to first responders to helping veterans get medical care. Black Rifle Coffee has a huge selection of dark roast, light roast, everything in between. Take the coffee quiz on their website and match with a blend perfectly tailored to your specific taste. Again, a portion of every purchase you make with Black Rifle Coffee goes towards supporting veteran and first responder causes. Your money goes a long way toward giving back to those who serve our nation. Head on over to blackriflecoffee.com right now. Use code DailyWire for 20% off America's coffee. That's blackriflecoffee.com, code DailyWire, blackriflecoffee.com, code DailyWire. And then Trump shifted into a more positive mode. And honestly, I thought that the speech was aspirational. I thought that it was uplifting. It had a lot of pragmatic suggestions about what he is going to do. But there was to the whole thing a positive American can-do attitude that's been missing for probably my entire adult lifetime in American politics. American politicians have not talked in totally aspirational terms about the things America is capable of doing for a very, very long time. Probably not during my lifetime. Honestly, I was a child when Ronald Reagan left office. That was probably the last time there was this sort of optimism in the United States. Here is President Trump saying the obvious thing, which is so true. I mean, I've said it directly to President Trump, that his life was spared by God to make America great again. There is no other way to read the near assassination of Donald Trump on stage live in front of a crowd when God, if not literally, almost literally, reached his hand down and turned Donald Trump's head a fraction of a degree and prevented his brains from splattering all over the stage. There's no other way to read that than what President Trump says right here.
Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
That, I think, is absolutely correct. And that is his job now. So again, there are many aspirational and memorable moments from the inaugural address. The most aspirational and memorable is when he talked about America's manifest destiny. And he talked about the idea that America was going to expand her territory. We're going to plant an American flag on Mars, he said. This, of course, must have excited Elon to no end. As we will see, it absolutely did. Here was President Trump yesterday in his second inaugural address.
And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Again, he then talked about the possibility of taking back control of the Panama Canal, saying we did not build that canal so the Chinese can control it. That would be a repudiation of Jimmy Carter, who handed over the Panama Canal to Panama despite American efforts to build the Panama Canal. He talked about peace in the world. He said he's going to be a peacemaker and a unifier, which involves, as we say, peace through strength, the threat of force, the credible threat of force that establishes peace in the world, along with the diplomacy that is the softer side, the velvet glove in which lies the iron fist. Here is President Trump.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families.
Now, President Trump was asked yesterday about the hostage deal, and he said, listen, I don't think Hamas is trustworthy. He said, I'd be shocked if they get to phase 2. That, of course, was my suggestion the other day when the hostage deal became public, was that President Trump said to Israel the thing that Joe Biden would not, which is if you have to go back in, you go back in and you go back in hard. President Trump also spoke at length about bringing back free speech. Again, all of the taboos have now been shattered with regard to sort of the left's politically correct wall that they had built, saying that a boy can be a girl or else. That is gone. That is gone. It is an amazing thing that the president of the United States, as we'll see, had to sign an executive order to establish that 1 + 1 = 2, that boys are not girls and girls are not boys. It is amazing that you have to have the president of the United States talk about a return of free speech. But that was made necessary by the left and by Joe Biden. Here was President Trump yesterday.
After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
President Trump, of course, as I just suggested, also said, listen, there are 2 genders in the United States of America, as there have been for all of human history everywhere.
I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only 2 genders, male and female.
That line was probably the biggest applause line of the entire inaugural speech, which demonstrates how far the left has gone completely off the rails. President Trump, of course, talked about the border in his inaugural address. This was his key issue in 2015, 2016. It remains his key issue 10 full years later because the left decided to open the border wide. Here's the president of the United States yesterday.
First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
Yep. That, of course, is what he was elected to do. And so, President Trump concluded his inaugural address with some glowing remarks about the future of American innovation, all of which was very inspiring. And then there was, I think, a great cultural moment. Carrie Underwood had been asked to come sing America the Beautiful, and the audio went out. And Carrie Underwood, who's a very talented person, just turned to the people who were handling the audio and said, give me the microphone and I'll just do it solo. I'll just do it a cappella. And she started to sing. And Carrie Underwood's a very talented person. It was a pretty great moment.
You know the words, help me out here. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
I mean, that's a great moment. That's a great moment. And again, if you're not feeling more optimistic this morning, you're doing it wrong. Even people who did not vote for Donald Trump understand that what we just went through over the past 4 years was a terrible, historically bad presidency. And that's the other side of this. The moment, and we were sitting overlooking the U.S. Capitol building yesterday while broadcasting, the moment that the helicopter took off, that was carrying Joe Biden out of American public life forever was one of the better moments of my life. It was truly a wonderful thing to see this terrible old man go. He's been an awful president of the United States. Here was footage of President Trump escorting Joe Biden to the helicopter. As I said on the show, the last time an American helicopter left a disaster this big, meaning what Joe Biden is leaving behind him, was Vietnam. Here was President Trump escorting former President Joe Biden to his helicopter where he saw him off. Bye. Catch you later. And man, the minute that he walked up the Marine One stairs for the final time, you could feel the burden being lifted from American hearts, truly.